Today we have a great comparison. It's the Yamaha CLP-735 versus the Kawai concert artist, the CA49, two incredible value digital pianos for the in-home player. Let's take a look at them, talk about the features, listen to them, and decide which one might be right for you.
Hi, this is Ted with Alamo Music Center in downtown San Antonio, Texas.
I'm Patrick Marr. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, check out our other videos, sign up for notifications, like our videos, leave us comments. We appreciate the support. We love to interact with you. Well, Ted, we like to start every video with a piano fact. I came prepared today.
Good, because I didn't.
Okay, good. Well, I've always been fascinated with, and some of viewers might not know that this was a piano that existed for a long time, but it's a very old, antique-looking instrument called a square grand.
Yes.
And you see them every once in a while, maybe on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or somewhere.
If you watch the movie The Piano, it's all about a square grand.
Well, and so I started doing a little research because I was like, that's an interesting fact. It's an instrument that almost looks like an upright piano. To like the someone who doesn't realize that it's kind of constructed differently. It looks like an upright piano, and it actually was created kind of with the same idea of an upright piano, a smaller footprint for somebody who still wants to enjoy a piano in their home. And so I did a little bit of research, and the square grand came out of the 1700s, the 18th century. The pianoforte was becoming very popular, and they manufacturers like, how do we get it in a smaller footprint? And the square grand was born. But for almost 100 years, from the mid 18th century to the mid 19th century, the 1850s, more square grands were made than any other piano and sold because of the footprint. And some of them very ornate, beautiful instruments, and even in American manufacturing, outsold every other piano.
There's a reason for that. That's not disclosed. You know what that is?
What is it?
The cast iron frame. It's easier to make.
Yeah.
Because at that time they were still using rods and doing this,
Yeah.
but it's easier to just pour a plate that's kind of square.
Square.
And you didn't have to put a curve in it. You didn't have to make a mathematical perfect kind of.
Yeah, it was strung. It was strung left to right.
It was strung left to right.
And it sits. The strings would sit like level in front of you, left to right. So just an interesting thing, and became extinct because of the upright piano that was, gained popularity and was really kind of invented at the end of the 19th century, coming into the 20th century.
Here's the other thing that I think is kind of really different about square pianos. The Steinway made a number of models of square pianos, and that sort of set the romantic precedent of the 19th century, the early 18 to 1850s, around that time, and a little bit after is when those pianos got really, really romanticized as being a great instrument. But a couple things came out of those pianos. One is you just can't throw a harp, compromise it, and it has compromised action. I don't know if there's different manufacturers, because after Steinway made theirs, other manufacturers started to copy. Some of them, it's different because the hammers are laid out entirely different. And that trend of why the bass keys are heavier than the treble keys, or why there's a gradual, is because literally at one time the bass keys used to be this long and they would get shorter as the keyboard went up.
Because it's striking, yeah.
Because the string was way over there. And the square grand has something to do with that. In the long run, when they started perfecting the real grands, the square grands couldn't cut it with the action because there was no consistency in the playing, and then tuning them was a nightmare. And the pin block wasn't all that
So they're
solid.
obsolete, they're extinct now. You can find one maybe hanging around. But that is our piano fact for the day. Square grands exist, and might be a thing of the
We had
far
one in
past.
here at one time.
I know we did. So let's get to it. Clavinova. Yamaha is very well known for their digital piano, the Clavinova, that really kind of started a revolution of digital pianos that could simulate what an acoustic piano could feel like, can feel like, sound like. This is almost 35 years ago now, when they started their endeavor to create a great instrument. Kawai quickly followed, and Kawai. The story of Yamaha and Kawai is interesting, and we won't get too into it because we've highlighted it before. But came from the same village in Japan, Kawai was one of the first technicians, if not the first technician.
Built the first piano action in Japan
Yeah, Kawai built the first piano action in Japan, but was
while he was working for Yamaha.
yeah. So he worked for the Yamaha family, and then eventually separated when the Yamaha family passed away. But we are in the distant future from that, and we're here in the modern age, and we have two incredible digital pianos, the CLP-735 and the CA49. The reason we chose these is because they have identical price points, $28.99, which, when you're looking at in-home digital pianos that kind of offer, a fully loaded, ready-to-go instrument, that is kind of the starting point. And people think, okay, right around $3,000, right below $3,000, we're looking at digital pianos. And I think the most important thing when we're going through some of these specs and we're going to listen to the instruments here and Ted's going to play them for us, the most important thing that I kind of realized at this point in the digital piano world, there's a fine balance of features and musicality.
Okay, look, I have something to say. When you talk about this price point at $28.99, I don't mean to sound like an old timer, but I actually bought the predecessor to the Clavinova. And when the first Clavinova came out, I went out and I bought it. Mm-hmm. And it had 3 piano sounds in it: piano 1, piano 2, piano 3, and a button that said stereophonic. Okay, and you know how much I paid for that?
Over $28.99?
I paid $28.99 plus tax. So as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the economy and in terms of what you get for your money, stuff hasn't changed in 35 years, except you get a whole lot bigger bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was an 8-bit machine.
Both technology,
you had more static and noise than...
And dollars have gotten cheaper though, right?
Yeah, and better. And so how can a dollar get better? Because you get more for it. But it's kind of funny because I'm thinking, if you had this machine, the possibility of making this machine with this kind of advanced technology then, and said in 35 years from now, you'll be able to buy this for that. And at that time, if you could have projected the cost, even including uninvented stuff, mm-hmm. It would be like, that's like over $250,000 worth of technology for 35 years ago.
And so
back then.
Yeah, and so like what these both have to offer, we're gonna get feature dense in it because we're gonna of course go over what each has to offer from a line item standpoint. But I think it's very important to realize, how does it respond to you as a musician? How does it highlight you as a musician and highlight itself as an instrument that can help you play and make you want to play
or learn at any age, whether you're a young kid or an old timer.
And so it's just interesting. The one thing that really kind of points that out, I think, in my mind, is the amount of voices on these instruments. They could fill it with 1,000 voices. You can buy a $300 Yamaha and it's got 500 voices on it. The amount of voices isn't something that's a defining characteristic of the quality of the instrument.
No, it's the quality of voices.
And so a lot of these features are like that, where it's like there's give and take. And so as if you're doing a research project on which one might be right for me, I think it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of manufacturers will use marketing terms and use feature sets to sell their product, of course. But at the end of the day, what does it mean? What's under the hood, and how does it respond to you as a player? Or how do hopefully we can demonstrate what each does for us. So when you just look at these right out of the box, you talk about the actions, the way it feels. The Yamaha CLP-735 has one of their most updated actions, and this was something that was improved from the predecessor on the 635. When they moved up to the 735, it's called the Grand Touch -S. So the Grand Touch was on their top of their line. They made a simplified version, S, a small version.
One word, Grand Touch. Mm-hmm. There's no D in it.
Yeah.
It's Grand Touch.
Grand Touch.
And the G and the T are capitalized.
And they call it the Grand Touch S, but it's the same on the 735 and the 745, even though the material is different. So on the 735, you're getting a plastic key. They call it a simulated ivory, a simulated ebony. And what they're real big on is the escapement measure that you feel in the keys.
That Grand Touch S. Mm-hmm. My idea of a Grand Touch is a real working grand piano action.
Well, they got to come up with a good name for it, right?
The S is like sort of simulated.
No. and so the Grand Touch feels great. The Kawai, when you move over to the Kawai, they have the Grand Feel. So Grand Touch, Grand Feel. The Grand Feel Compact on the CA49 Once you move up, it turns into a Grand Feel 3 on their upgraded models. But the thing that Kawai kind of separates here real early on is they have 88 wooden keys. So
88 wooden keys, and isn't the action setting on top instead of underneath?
the action.
On
So
the Kawai?
so they have counterweights on the base section of. So counterweights, when you look at the Yamaha line, don't really kind of come into effect until you get all the way up to the 785. And then they have something called linear graded action on the 775. But the 735 doesn't have either of those.
Right.
Kind of their big thing is that it's got the escapement feel. On Kawai, the Grand Feel compact they have a let-off simulation. They have the counterweights in the base section. But the wood keys is the big differentiator
Right.
between these two. And so you get 88 wooden keys. And on none of the Yamaha digitals will you ever get 88 weighted keys. You get the white keys will be wooden.
Black keys are simulated.
They're simulated.
Resins or polys.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things where you that's a point I would say for Kawai. Then you get to what the sound samples are. And so, you've played both these for a long time. You've played the Kawai line and you've played the Yamaha line. Yamaha is really big on their CFX sound, their sound sample. I feel like it's been there for the last couple generations as the CFX sound. Great sounding thing, plays great, sounds great. The Bosendorfer, the Bosendorfer Imperial that they've redone on the latest version, they have the binaural sample on that, which is basically you're sitting in front of the
I didn't use
instrument.
headphones on this at all, and that is a special thing.
Yeah.
Because it does. When I think back on digital piano and why I really bought one way back when I was such a purist, it was basically for that. So I can play piano and not bother other folks in the house that I live with. And that headphone experience over the last 35 years has just gotten tremendously better.
Yeah, and Kawai has the thing called spatial headphone simulation or whatever it is,
Right.
and it's SHS, and it's like their version of creating a great sounding instrument. But Yamaha's gotten big on, hey, we got our CFX, our Bosendorfer. Kawai on the CA49 has their SKEX piano rendering, and so one of the big things that they both have their main feature, I would say, is their main instrument, of course. But when you look at the Yamaha line, there is a thing called piano room, which they're big on every one of their digital pianos. The piano room gets me back to the piano in a simulated environment, whether it's a stage or
Right.
a concert hall. And it basically changes the reverb. You can change the lid position. You can change the instrument. Kind of very, very easy to figure out, easy to navigate. Kawai, on the other hand, goes another step and says, hey, we're going to do a virtual technician.
They give you a lot more details.
They give you 19 parameters to go through, and you can change a whole bunch of, the resonance depth of, the cabinet, of the strings, of, you can change the tuning
Right.
adjustments. You can go all this, and it's in one kind of centralized place. Where Yamaha, they give you the piano room, which is a cool feature, but then if you want to go change minute things, they have a couple, but you got to kind of menu dive and go through settings. Both of them have incredible apps. The piano remote app from Kawai, the Yamaha one is
It's
Smart Pianist.
Yeah, Smart Pianist.
And so they have the ability to kind of go through and make changes. But really, what would you say the differences are when you play the SKEX and play the CFX? What's with all these the X's and the 9? So those are their 9-foot piano samples.
Yeah, the 9-foot piano sounds. I think the CFX is a great sound.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the SK or the EX. The SKEX, I think, is a great sample. Which one is better? I don't know. Because the problem I have with both of these sounds, particularly the Yamaha on this keyboard, the 735, is that it's like the sound system is almost not good enough to support that sample. And I don't quite get that feeling with the CA49, but the 735, for some reason, when I played on it, the sound was great, but it didn't have any kind of oomph behind it, or any kind of. It just sounded small and boxy. It felt that way, even though you can tell that. I mean, auditory, it's like great. I mean, the sound is great, but the thing is missing.
It's not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we were talking about the sample because I think we're going to take a break. We're going to listen to the pianos, listen to a couple
Super.
of the sounds. But we're going to listen to the CA49 and the CLP-735.
Well, Patrick, I played the top tier piano, the CFX, the Bosendorfer. And then I think what comes up first is the SK
EX
concert,
rendering?
EX, and then the concert grand.
Yeah, the EX, so the predecessor.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they Kawai's got a fancy name, the harmonic imaging, and so they have their version of how they recorded it. Both of these companies have their version of how they record their 9-foot piano, and again, it translates differently when you're sitting in front of it, and it translates differently if you're sitting at their entry line that has 230-watt speakers, or if you're sitting at the 150-watt upgraded version with the bigger box and the CA99 or the 901.
It really does, and when you sit down and you play like 735, 745, then you go up to the next one with 775,
yeah,
and then even the 785, and you're listening to it, it's like they all pretty much sound the same, but you don't get the delivery. And it's the same true for the Kawai. So you go with a 49, 59, 79, 99, whatever it is. They all sound the same. So like if you were watching the video in headphones, the only real differences you're going to hear in the sound is as you go up in the higher grade keyboards, they start having more ways to manipulate the sample. Instead of just like loud, soft, and medium, there might be 4 or 5 or 6 different ways that you can put inflection.
As you go through the Kawai line, they add more to the virtual technician, which means they're adding more, more modeling to the
capability,
instrument.
based on memory.
And then the big thing that changes is the action on both these pianos. And so the one thing that we can't translate, but as a player we can hopefully to tell you, but it's they add more features. As you move up on the Yamaha line, they add that linear graded hammers. They add counterweights eventually. Kawai will they add counterweights at a certain point. They add they just upgrade their action. They get a longer key. You get all this more control. They do upgrade the sample a little bit in the modeling that goes behind it. But at this price point, at $28.99, very similar instruments as far as feature set. The voices, I think you get 38 on the Yamaha, you get 19 on the Kawai. Again, this is one of those things where
they're all quality voices.
They're quality voices. The speaker system is quality. They're very similar. I think it's 20 watts per side on the Kawai, 30 watts per side on the Yamaha.
There is one thing I do have to say that is a letdown on both models. If you start at the top, the 785 and the CA99, then you go to the next model down and think, okay, if I don't spend this much and I go to this one and I go to this one and I go to this one and you go down those models, it's like, I only like the ones that are kind of up in here.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the downside to it is that the sound is there, but every single one of those price differentials, whether it's the Yamaha or the Kawai, whether it's 700, 400, or 500, if it's not about the finish, if it's just about the instrument from 735 to 745, every single one of those step ups are worth it in the way that it plays. Because when you play them backwards, and this is what happened to me last time we shot videos, it's like, I'm never doing this again. It's easier to play them because things that you're looking for, it's so much fun to play up front. It's like, I'm tired of my riff, I'm tired of what I came up with, and it's not fun to play here.
Doesn't inspire anymore to play.
It gets better as you go along the other way.
Yeah.
And so, there is a marked difference in how every single one of these samples and actions respond from one level, whether it's the Kawai or the Yamaha. Every single step you go up, it's worth it monetarily, but you have to find a point. It's like when you're rebuilding an engine, it's like, at what point do you stop?
Yeah.
You're gonna go down to the camshaft. You're gonna live with that.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those
comes
things
a point where people have to stick with their budget and what's important to you, and also to the person that's playing it. Because a lot of times you have parents buying for a child, or a lot of times you have a grandparent buying for an adult child.
What I think is interesting though, as we look at these models, and we'll review other CA series versus Clavinova series. Clavinova has been the leader for so long in a lot of digital technology as far as digital pianos go, that they've had a target on them for so long.
They have, and the one thing, they're real competitive. They are a world-class, worldwide competitor. And more people are playing on their stuff than almost anyone else's. But here's the thing, that's a tough competitor.
Well,
it's a tough. I'm not saying that other products don't stack up.
No, I just think recently there's been a lot to edge them out.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, and the Yamaha will always be
absolutely.
Yamaha. And I would say from the CLP-500 series on, we've seen a lot of incremental add-ons, the Forte piano, all these like, the binaural sound, all these things that are close to like adding nice features, but
there hasn't been a major keyboard innovation coming out of Yamaha in quite some time.
And so that's just one thing to be aware of. Kawai, on the other hand, has really tried to strive to be the future, and they're right there on their board every day is make the best action, make the best sample they can in every single price point, and that's their goal. And so
they're really doing it.
And so they're not trying to overfill it with anything. I'm not trying to say that Yamaha is a bad choice of an instrument. It's been the gold standard for a very long time. It's just the amount of options that are out there now. And innovation that we're seeing is cool. Kawai has the Bluetooth MIDI on this one, and Yamaha does not in this price point. It doesn't have. So just things to look out for. If you've owned either of these, if you've owned a 35 before from Yamaha, whether it was the 735, which we're talking about here, or the 635 or the 535, you can go all the way back. Or if you've owned one of the CA series from Kawai, the 49, the predecessor was the 48, the 47. Please leave comments. Let us know what your experience was owning it, why you chose it, maybe why you played the Yamaha or the Kawai and went back and forth. At this price point, it's really hard to argue with the wood keys, though, is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because you do get just a little bit, I would say, a better bang for the buck with that the wood keys that they make.
The 49.
And yeah, just the virtual technician, I would say, is a really cool feature as well.
It really is.
But again, both of them are fantastic instruments. Please leave comments. Let us know which one you chose, and let us know if you have any questions. I know a lot of people would love to discuss this, and hopefully this was helpful in your journey and finding the right instrument for you. We will have more comparisons between Yamaha and Kawai, so make sure you are subscribed so you see those. We'll be comparing the 745 versus the CA49. We'll be comparing the 775 with the CA701 now, which is the new model from Kawai, and then the 785 versus the 901. So those will all be in the works. So make sure you're subscribed because those will be great videos with really fantastic instruments, and we're gonna go up the ladder instead of down the ladder.
Down the ladder.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.